Hey guys, it's Jasma, and today we're making homemade baguettes. Baguettes are a type of French bread which are really simple to make, and you can do many different types of things with it, such as make garlic bread, which I will have a video on how to do that later on. These are really simple to make and they almost come out perfect every single time. So let's get started. For the ingredients you will need 3½ cups plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 3/4 cup of water, 1½ teaspoons of active dry yeast, and 1 teaspoon of white granulated sugar. Starting off, I have some warm water here, about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm just going to add in the sugar. And adding in the sugar is going to help the yeast activate a lot faster. And also add in the yeast. Then we're just going to give this a stir. Now we're just going to set it aside for it to activate until it is nice and foamy on top. Meanwhile, we're going to mix together our dry ingredients. So I'm just going to add the salt to the flour. And then I'm just going to mix together the salt and the flour. The yeast is activated, it is nice and foamy on top, so now we could make the bread dough. I'm using a stand mixer here today, and I have attached a dough hook. And into the bowl, I'm going to add in the dry ingredients. But if you don't have a stand mixer, you can of course just do this by hand in a big bowl or with a wooden spoon. And then we're going to add in the yeast. Then we're going to put this onto the machine. And then knead this for about 7 to 8 minutes until the sides of the bowl are clean and it has formed a dough. And just so you know, the dough is going to be very sticky. This is supposed to be a really sticky dough here, but if you find it too sticky and it's not forming into a ball of dough, then you can add in about a tablespoon of flour to make it a little less sticky. This has been kneading for about 7 minutes, so now I have already prepared a bowl which is greased, and you want to make sure you spray it with a good amount of nonstick cooking spray, or you can use oil because this is a very sticky dough and it will stick to the bowl if you don't grease it. So now I'm just going to clean off the dough hook. Now I'm going to cover it. I have a lid here. You could also use some plastic wrap if you want. And then we're going to place this somewhere warm for it to rise until it is about doubled in size. And it could take up to an hour. It just really depends on the temperature of where you put it. My dough has been rising for about half an hour and it has doubled in size because I placed it in a really warm spot. But again, your rising time may vary depending on the temperature of where you put it. So now I have a cutting board here and I'm just going to dust it with some flour so the dough doesn't stick. And then I'm going to flip the dough on top of the flour cutting board. Then I'm going to just dust the top of the dough a little so it doesn't stick. And then I'm just going to flip it over a couple times with my bench scraper. Then once it forms kind of a rectangle shape, I'm going to cut it into thirds. Again, I'm using my bench scraper, but if you don't have one, you could just use a knife. Try to cut it as evenly as possible, and you could also weigh it if you want to. divided the dough into thirds as evenly as I possibly can. Now I'm going to sprinkle a baking tray that I have lined with some aluminum foil with a good amount of flour so the dough doesn't stick. Now I'm going to place 2 pieces of the dough aside, and I'm going to shape one of them into a baguette. So sprinkle the surface with a little bit more flour so nothing sticks. And then just roll it over and over again while pulling to form a baguette. I've shaped my baguette, so now I'm just going to place it under the baking tray, which I have just floured. And then just do the same with the other 2 pieces of dough. And now we're going to cut about 3 slits diagonally on each of the baguette. Again, I'm using my bench scraper, but you could just use a knife if you want to. So now I'm going to cover these baguettes with a damp towel while it's rising the second time, and we're covering it with a damp towel so it doesn't dry out while it's rising. And it could take about a half an hour. You want to place in a warm spot until it is doubled in size. Meanwhile, we're going to preheat the oven to 475 degrees Fahrenheit and place a pan on the very bottom of the oven for it to heat up with the oven. And we're doing this because later on, while we place the baguettes into the oven, we're also going to be pouring some water into that pan to create steam inside of the oven. So while the baguettes are baking, it is going to create a really crispy crust, but it's still going to be really soft and chewy on the inside. My baguette has doubled in size. It has rised for about half an hour with a damp towel on top. So now we're ready to bake it. My oven has been preheating to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. And before we place in the baguettes, we're going to pour in about 4 cups of cold water into the tray that we added in earlier. And doing this is going to create steam inside of the oven, which is going to create a really crispy crust for the baguettes, but it will stay soft on the inside. The oven is very hot right now, so you want to make sure you wear oven mitts so you don't burn yourself. Place the pan of water on the very bottom of the oven and place the baguettes into the middle layer. Now we're going to bake this at 475 degrees Fahrenheit for about half an hour. And if you find the top being too brown, you can cover it with a layer of aluminum foil. The baguettes has baked in the oven preheated at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. It is nice and golden brown on top, and again, if you find the top being a little too brown, you could whether flip it over or you could cover it with a layer of aluminum foil to stop it from burning. Now it is really crispy on the outside, so we're going to cut right into it. You can see it's very soft on the inside, but the outer crust is really crispy, so this is going to taste really good. This is a really chewy bread. It has a really crispy outside crust, and it is also kind of salty, so it gives the bread a flavor as well. And as you can notice, there's no fat at all in this bread, so it's quite healthy as well. And to store, just keep it at room temperature. In the next video, I'll be showing you how to make garlic bread with this baguette, so it makes it taste even better, and it will be eaten in a very short while. So, I hope you could try this bread out. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye!